I'm looking at the informational article. It's a science article. It's How Smart Are Animals by Dorothy Hinshaw Patton. Background. Do animals have emotions? Can a monkey have morals? Can a dog plan ahead? Questions like these have long been on the minds of those who study and research animal behavior. However, determining clear answers to these questions and others like them have proved to be a challenge. How smart is smart? The blizzard came on suddenly, with no warning. 11-year-old Andrea Anderson was outside near her home when the storm struck. The 60 to 80-mile-an-hour winds drove her into a snowdrift, and the snow quickly covered up to her waist. Unable to get out, she screamed desperately for help. Through the whirling wind, Villa, a year-old Newfoundland dog belonging to Andrea's neighbors, heard her cries. Villa had always been content to stay inside her dog run. Now she leapt over the 5-foot fence and rushed to Andrea's side. First she licked the girl, then began circling around her, hacking down the snow with her paws. Next, Villa stood still as a statue in front of the girl with her paws on the packed snow. The dog waited until Andrea grabbed her, then strained forward, pulling the girl from the drift. As the storm raged around them, Villa led the way back to Andrea's home. Villa won the Ken L. Ration Dog Hero of the Year award in 1983 for her bravery, loyalty, and intelligence. Her feat was truly impressive. Understanding that Andrea needed help and performing the task necessary to save her. We can all admire Villa and her envy Andrea for having such a loyal friend. But did Villa's heroic behavior exhibit intelligence? Some scientists would say that. While Villa certainly is a wonderful animal, her behavior was unthinking, perhaps an instinctive holdover from the protective environment of the wolf pack, where the adult animals defend the pups against danger. After all, dogs evolved from wolves, which are highly social animals. They would say that Villa just acted without really understanding the concept of danger or thinking about what she was doing. Up until the 1960s, this view of animals prevailed among scientists studying animal behavior. And nowadays, a variety of experiments and experiences with different creatures are showing that some animals have impressive mental abilities. Do animals think? If dogs might think, what about bees, rats, birds, cats, monkeys, and apes? How well do animals learn? How much of their experiences can they remember? Can they apply what they may have learned to new challenges in their lives? Are animals aware of the world around them? How might it be possible to learn about and evaluate the intelligence of different animals? It's easy to confuse trainability with thinking. But just because an animal can learn to perform a trick doesn't mean that it knows what it's doing. The IQ Zoo in Hot Springs, Arkansas, for example, animals perform some amazing tasks. Cat turns on the lights and then plays the piano, while a duck strums on the guitar with its bill. Parrots ride tiny bicycles and slide around on roller skates. At John F. Kennedy Airport in New York, beagles work for the Food and Drug Administration, sniffing at luggage and signaling when they perceive drugs or illegal food in the baggage. Dolphins and killer whales at marine parks perform some spectacular feats, and the behavior is often linked into a storyline so that it appears they are acting roles, as humans would in a movie or play. These animals may seem to be behaving in an intelligent fashion, but they're just repeating behavior patterns they have been trained to perform for food rewards. The drug-sniffing beagle has no concept of drug illegality, and the duck doesn't understand or appreciate music. They aren't thinking and deciding what to do. Studying the intelligence of animals is very tricky. During the 19th and 20th centuries, people readily attributed human emotions and mental abilities to animals. Even learned scientists have great faith in animal minds. An animal can think in a human way and can express human ideas in human language, said the respected Swiss psychiatrist Gustav Wolff in the early 1900s. Wolff's statement was inspired by Clever Hans, a horse that appeared to show remarkable intelligence. A retired schoolteacher trained Hans as he would a child, with blackboards, flashcards, number boards, and letter cards. After 4 years of training, Hans was ready to perform in public. When asked to solve a numerical problem, Hans would paw the answer with his hoof. He shook his head yes and no, moved it up and down, and turned it right or left. Hans would show his knowledge of colors by picking up a rag of the appropriate shade with his teeth. Many scientists of the time came to watch Hans and tried to figure out how he performed his amazing feats. They went away impressed. Hans appeared to understand human language and to have mastered arithmetic. And Oscar Fungst, a German experimental psychologist, uncovered Hans's secret by using what is now a standard scientific method, a double-blind experiment. When the horse was asked a question, no one in his presence knew the answer. Under these conditions, Clever Hans was no longer so smart. He couldn't come up with the correct responses. By observing the horse and the audience when the answer was known, Funks discovered that Hans was very sensitive to the smallest movements of the people watching. They would lean ever so slightly forward until he had pawed the correct number of times, then relax. He watched for the sign of relief, then stopped pawing. His trainer unknowingly moved his head from side to side or up and down, just enough for Hans to take a cue to what to do. The end of his investigation. Funks was able to prove his point. He stood in front of Hans without asking any questions. He nodded his head slightly, and the horse began to tap its hoof. When Funks straightened his head, Hans stood at attention. Ever since the embarrassment of Clever Hans, psychologists have been extremely wary of falling into the same trap. They are ready to call upon the Clever Hans phenomenon whenever an animal seems to be exhibiting intelligent behavior. Clever Hans taught psychology some important lessons, but the incident they've also have made behavioral scientists too cautious about the mental abilities of animals. Animals that are easy to train may also be very intelligent. Some of the most trainable creatures, such as dolphins, are also the most likely candidates for genuine animal thinking. But finding ways to get animals' real mental capacity can be very difficult. What is intelligence? We humans recognize a smart person when we meet one. We know who is a brain and who is not. In school, we take IQ tests, which are supposed to give a numerical measure of our intelligence. But these days, the whole concept of intelligence is being re-evaluated. Older standard IQ tests measure only a limited range of mental abilities, concentrating on mathematics and language skills. Creativity, which most people would agree is a critical element in meaningful application of intelligence, has not traditionally been evaluated by such tests, and other important mental skills have also been ignored. But things are changing. Many scientists believe that dozens of different talents are a part of intelligence. In fact, more than 100 factors of intelligence have been written about in scientific literature. Psychologists are now developing tests that measure intelligence more accurately and more broadly. The SOI, Structure of Intellect test, for example, evaluates 5 main factors of intelligence: cognition, comprehension; memory, evaluation, judgment, planning, reasoning, and critical decision making; convergent production, solving problems where answers are known; and divergent production, solving problems creatively. Each of these are broken down further into many subcategories. But what about animals? We can't hand them a pencil and paper and give them a test. We can't ask them what they're thinking. We must find other ways of measuring their smarts. And that's not the only problem. Since the lives of animals are so different from ours, we can't apply human standards to them. We must develop different ideas of what animal intelligence might be. The concept of intelligence was thought up by humans, and our thinking about it is tied up with our own human system of values. Things that are important to animals can be different from those that matter to humans. When studying animals, we must test them in situations that have meaning for their lives, not ours, and not just look and see how much they resemble us. Studying animal thought. Many pitfalls await the scientists trying to interpret animals' behavior and make inferences about their intelligence. One is inconsistency. An animal might breeze through what we consider a difficult learning task and then fail when presented with what seems obvious to us. When an animal can't perform well, we don't know if it really cannot solve the problems put to it or it just doesn't want to. Sometimes the difficulty lies in the perceptive abilities of the animals. The animal may have the mental ability and the desire to solve the problem, but it is unable to make the discriminations being asked of it. For example, a researcher using colored objects to compare learning in a cebus monkey and in a rhesus monkey first found that the rhesus scored much higher than the cebus. The rhesus monkeys have color vision that is essentially the same as ours, while the zebras is significantly different. When the design of the experiment was changed and the gray objects were substituted for colored ones, the cebus monkeys actually did a little better than the rhesus. Scientists Studying animals in nature can run into difficulties in interpreting the results if they don't pay very close attention to what they see and hear. C.G. Beer of Rutgers University in New Jersey spent long hours studying laughing gull behavior. Early on, he interpreted what he called the long call as a signal that was the same for each bird and that was made on all occasions. But when he recorded a variety of long calls and played them back to the gulls, he noticed that the birds didn't always respond in the same way. There were differences in the calls that were hard for human researchers to hear. Beer then realized that the long call was actually so individualized that it helped distinguish one bird from another. The more carefully he listened to the calls and watched the gulls' reactions to them, the more complexity and variety he found in both the calls and the responses. From this work, Beer concluded, we may often misunderstand what animals are doing in social interaction because we fail to draw our distinctions where the animals draw theirs. Measuring animal intelligence. Keeping all these concerns in mind, we can list some factors of intelligence that might be measurable or observable in animals. Speed of learning, complexity of learned tasks, ability to retrieve information from a long-term memory, rule learning, decision-making and problem-solving capacity, counting aptitude, understanding of spatial relations, the ability to learn by watching what others do. More advanced signs of intelligence are tool manufacture and uses, symbolic communication, and the ability to form mental concepts. With such a list of capabilities that might be involved with intelligence, it seems that scientists should be able to analyze and compare the intelligence of animals. But it's one thing to decide to test intelligence and another to design experiments that will measure it. You may read somewhere that rats, for example, are smarter than pigeons, but finding ways to compare the accomplishments of different species is virtually impossible. Animals are just too varied with their physical makeup and in their lifestyles. Scientists have found that different kinds of animals learn better under different sorts of conditions. So the same experiment usually can't be used meaningfully on a rat and a pigeon. In addition, some animals have evolved special mental skills to deal with their particular environments. They might appear especially intelligent on one measure of brain power and very dull on another. Dealing with wild animals presents new problems. Laboratory pigeons and rats have been bred for many generations in captivity. They are used to cages, and to humans, and large numbers are easy to acquire. Wild animals may not perform well in the laboratory because they are afraid or because the setting is so strange to them. And because wild animals are often hard to come by, the experimenter must usually work with only a small number of individuals. Variations of intelligence from one individual to the next can significantly affect the results. Primates, apes and monkeys, are among the most intelligent animals, and apes seem closer to our idea of smart than monkeys. But a bright monkey may score as well on a test as an ape, where a dull one may be outclassed by a rat. For these reasons, behavioral scientists have realized that trying to compare the intelligence of different animals is a very challenging problem. This doesn't mean, however, they're trying to find out how animal minds function is not worth the effort. We can learn a great deal through the studying of how various kinds of animals solve problems and how they use their mental abilities to survive in their natural environments.